Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CS Cyber. I'm Sean.
And I'm Chad.
And there's a lot in the news today, so we're just going to hop right in and talk about the Dick's Sporting Goods compromise.
Yeah. You want to kick that one off?
Yeah, that was an interesting use of webcam technology in order to authenticate users. So Dick's is reporting that they had to shut down their email system, and then their IT department was using webcam sessions in order to do authentication. That probably would have been a really good idea for KnowBe4 during the North Korean breach.
Yeah, it was very similar to that. I mean, actually verifying that a user is who they say they are, right? So, but yeah, that happened back, like that started August 21st, I think.
Yeah.
But they activated their response plan, right? So there were some good things that they did out of that, right? So they had a response plan. They've contacted federal law enforcement. There was some confirmed confidential data in there for employees and who else? I think it was just primarily employees that were impacted by that.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, no disruption to their operations.
Yeah, I think I've seen, on a positive note, I think I've definitely seen an improvement with organizations in their public disclosure. I think the SEC rule about publicly traded companies filing those 8Ks, I really think that changed things a little bit.
I do too.
I've seen more consistent verbiage for disclosure, and so I've not to say I've seen a consistent pattern, that's a good thing per se, but I definitely on the side of like the response to your point, I've seen things look a little bit more organized.
Yeah, I have too, and that's something I think we've seen probably really over the last 6 months where people are saying, hey, we activated our response plan. We've contacted law enforcement.
Yeah.
So I think to me, at least that indicates that they have some plan in place. I mean, how well it's executed is kind of behind closed doors, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess until deepfakes becomes a real big problem, which I think it already is, but using webcams is probably a pretty good idea from an authentication standpoint. But deepfakes, definitely keep an eye on that.
But I just had this thought. How does someone that's verifying that knows what that person looks like?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's a huge company.
Right. So a lot of that I think probably, would be maybe an onboarding if there's we talked about in the North Korean thing, at some point, I think you have to get people to some regional center, right? In person.
Right.
So I really don't think you can just interview and take a job remote and never see the employee. I think there's a lot of dangers to that.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay. Cool. No, that's a good question. All right, the Toyota breach, third party, allegedly. This was an interesting one because of the use of a very readily available tool called AD Recon. So AD Recon is a tool that's used to enumerate Active Directory, and it's no secret that threat actors use fully available open source tools.
Yeah, they're all free. So
yeah,
it works out really well.
Yeah, it does. So the Toyota article itself, definitely went into a discussion about endpoint detection and response. There's definitely a discussion around using EDR in some of these living off the land type scenarios. I don't necessarily know if EDR would have per se picked up on at this type of activity, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think a combination of SIM and logging technology, maybe some UBEA or UEBA, the user experience behavior analysis type technology. I think a combination of multiple tool sets may have picked up on nefarious activity of an open source tool.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, LDAP queries aren't really unusual, but if someone's doing them that normally doesn't, then
yeah.
So
right, or there's a massive amount of them.
Right. Yeah. I think in this case it was about 240 gigs of both employee and customer data. Right. So I mean, that was a lot, but I mean, what was that like? They've been breached like 4 times. At
least, man. I really need to do some research and pull all of these in a timeline.
Well, it looks like 2019, 2022, 2023, now 2024.
Okay.
So.
Or you'll do it for me.
Yeah, I already did that.
I appreciate that. No, it's been a lot, right? And then some of those have been third party. Heck, we just saw, I was going to include it in the cycle for next week when I get back from DC, but BMW got compromised.
Yeah.
So that popped up.
I think that really just speaks to, companies we talked about this before, right? Companies are connected to companies that you're accepting their risk. And it's just, people are so integrated with each other just to support the workflow and, the timelines that you need to get data somewhere else. But a lot of risk associated with that.
Yeah, there is. No, there is. There's a lot of risk associated with that. There's there's still a lot of lack of third and fourth party risk that we've talked about on this show quite a bit.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be told there. That's for sure. All right. So next up is the Iranians are quite active, as well as other threat actors. But in this particular incident, there was a CISA article about increased Iranian activity, and you did some research on that too.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think this is something that's going to stop anytime soon, right? So phishing attacks. They're trying to install malware. And really what I found was there's really a group of hackers behind this. It's not just one. So it's APT42, Green Charlie, Charming Kitten. There was like 7 more. So this is a very organized, sophisticated attack that's very targeted. So
yeah, this is the same. This is an organization or a set of threat actors that are going after education, finance, healthcare, defense sector, local government entities, including, U.S., Israel, Azerbaijan, UAE. I mean, that's just to name a few, right?
Right. Yeah. So there's definitely overlap in these hacker groups, and they're definitely working together.
Yeah, for sure.
On some projects, for sure.
And the bulletin has a bunch of IOCs or indicators of compromise that you can look out for. If you don't ingest these types of bulletins, these alerts that come out from CISA, I highly recommend that you do, because they usually have a bunch of like real intelligence that you can use in order to load these things into your tools and then look for this type of activity or threat hunt.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Cool.
So CTAC is still struggling. So we're kind of following this one a little bit.
Yeah, they're getting back up to speed. I haven't read the latest articles, but last time I looked earlier this week, they were still down, not fully operational.
Yeah, it looked like some of the bigger carriers had come back up. Some of the local aircraft carriers, not aircraft carriers. There were no aircraft carriers involved. Some of the more larger airline companies
there you go.
Had not been impacted because they had their own system. So, but they are still not 100% operational and are still trying to get back up to speed. So,
yep.
All right. And then I think we're going to end it with a City of Columbus update.
Yeah, do Columbus, and I have one more that I want to talk about.
Okay. So Columbus has been very interesting, just to that's probably putting it mildly. One of the most recent incidents that happened inside that case is that the city attorney for the city of Columbus, Ohio, filed a temporary restraining order against I guess for all purposes, we're going to call him a whistleblower or some type of, a citizen that's trying to bring light to the incident for basically going onto the dark web. And he has met with, his name's Connor Goodwolf, which is his kind of code name.
Okay.
And he has been going onto the dark web, downloading the information, and kind of exposing to the media all the types of data that the government has been that was involved in the compromise, so that they can become aware of what might come downstream.
So he's unpacking it for them.
He's been unpacking it for them. So a TRO was filed, and in this particular case,
what's a TRO?
Temporary restraining order.
Okay.
And in this particular case, Connor Goodwolf was not able to air his side of the story. And that's just because of how these TROs get filed in court. So this is a civil protection order. This is not a criminal protection order. I highly recommend that you go on YouTube and look for your own ears at these press conferences and hear the questions that are being asked and how the city is responding. Because honestly, in all cases, this probably wasn't the best thing to do in the public eye right now. To try and, I'm going to say silence, because I don't know what else they were trying to get him to do. This gentleman from talking anymore to the media about what he's finding.
So does this just shut him down immediately? I mean, the media can't talk to him. He can't. I mean, just like that.
I don't think so. That's the city attorney says no. That this is not a First Amendment issue. So if they weren't trying to get him to be quiet, they said that they were trying to get him to stop the actions. So I'm telling you, man, this is going to be very interesting. So, the world, I think, needs to pay attention to this. I highly encourage, media outlets to get involved here, and kind of watch what's trying to unfold in the city of Columbus, because it's very interesting.
Yeah, so one we'll keep following for sure.
Yeah, we'll keep following that. So what was yours?
YubiKey.
Oh, yeah.
So
right.
read an article this morning about YubiKey. What really interested in me in this was the fact that there's no way to really patch it, right? So there's a vulnerability that came out for YubiKey 5 series, specifically firmware version 5.7.0 and below, which allows an attacker to actually clone the device, right? So you have to have actual physical access to the device and some special software that's pretty pricey, but it's possible, and there's no patch for it, right? So could be used in some very, targeted attacks. I'm thinking like espionage, things like that. But it was just really interesting, right? I mean, as we've started to move to FIDO, I think it's just because there's a vulnerability doesn't mean it's not a good tool. I think it's probably the best tool out there for security, for what we're trying to do. But yeah, just really interesting to me, like how this hardware token, it can't be patched. It's, I think it's probably just one of, several that will come out as, we continue down that path. But
and there's no patch available, or it just cannot be patched. Like this is just
from what I understand, it just cannot be patched. Like there's no way to for users to upgrade that firmware. So
okay, gotcha.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely outlines, operational security. So, some of these authentication tools, you're definitely going to have to keep with you, right?
Right, and really have, a way to manage these devices and revoke that access if it's lost or stolen or somehow compromised. I mean,
right.
Having that process, even for your users to bring that up, right? Nobody wants to be like, oh, I lost my phone, I lost my YubiKey, but you got to know those things pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, you may even have to have a policy that says, look, if you lose sight of your YubiKey for any amount of time, if you're in your house and it's hanging up, right, that's one thing. But if you're out in the public or traveling and, it's been gone for a while and then you just find it, I'd report that stolen.
That's weird.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we have for today. Thanks for your viewership and welcome to the new channel. So like and subscribe to CS Cyber and definitely pass this along to others.
See you next time.
All right. We'll see you next time.